Welcome back to Views with Hughes, your gender-free news. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, it's been a wild ride watching the decline of Star Wars franchise under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, okay? Now, for the past decade, we've seen one failure after another, all thanks to the woke agenda that Kathleen Kennedy has been pushing. But now rumors are swirling that Kathleen Kennedy, as you all know, is planning to retire once out if an upcoming Star Wars movie becomes a major hit. So why now? Why does Kathleen Kennedy want out after so many failures? Well, I'm going to go ahead and basically break it down in detail, but let's be honest here. Disney Star Wars has been in a free fall ever since Kathleen Kennedy took the helm at Lucasfilm. We've seen beloved characters ruined, nonsensical plots, and an obsession with woke identity politics that's been alienating the core fan base. From The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker and countless Disney series that no one even asked for except for The Mandalorian, seasons 1 and 2, and it's been a disaster. The box office numbers don't lie, and neither do the fan reactions. The more they push this woke nonsense, the more people tune out, okay? Now, I also want to dive a bit deeper into what these failures really mean, okay? Now, take, for example, The Last Jedi, okay? This was supposed to be the continuation of the Skywalker saga, a story that's been a part of our cultural fabric for over 40 years. But what did Kathleen Kennedy do? Kathleen Kennedy allowed Rian Johnson to take the reins and completely dismantle what George Lucas built. Luke Skywalker, the character we all grew up with and everything, was turned into a bitter recluse who tried to kill his own nephew. And that's not the Luke Skywalker we know. That's not the hero who faced down the Emperor and redeemed his father, Darth Vader. All right. And what about the Rise of Skywalker? Okay. The Rise of Skywalker was supposed to fix the mess left by Rian Johnson in the Last Jedi, but it was too little too late. The film was also a jumbled mess of fan service and plot holes trying to undo the damage while still trying to push the same woke agenda thanks to Kathleen Kennedy. Now, the result, the movie was no one was satisfied with was left in shambles. But let's not forget about the Disney Star Wars series under Kathleen Kennedy's watch. Now, The Mandalorian was a hit, but that was largely because Kathleen Kennedy kept her hands off of it and let Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni work on it. But look at what happened with Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi. Now, these were supposed to be home runs, bringing back iconic characters as well as expanding the universe itself. But instead, we got mediocre storytelling, pointless side plots, and more forced diversity that felt out of place in the Star Wars franchise itself. Okay, and thanks to Kathleen Kennedy, then there's also the Disney Star Wars, The Acolyte by Leslie Headland under Kathleen Kennedy, which is the perfect example of everything that's gone wrong in Disney Star Wars. And this show was supposed to be explore the dark side of the force, but instead it turned into yet another platform for pushing political agendas. Now, the fans saw right through it too, and the ratings plummeted. And it's no wonder that there was no word for a second season, okay, of the Disney Star Wars Acolyte. Now, Kathleen Kennedy wants out while banking on one final Star Wars movie to be a major hit. Why? Well, simple, because Kathleen Kennedy knows that her legacy is on the line. Now, if this movie can somehow break through and become a success, it gives Kathleen Kennedy a chance to step down on a high note. It's also Kathleen Kennedy's last-ditch effort to salvage what little credibility Kathleen Kennedy has left. But let's be real. This isn't about giving Star Wars fans what they want. It's about trying to erase the decade of failures with one final Hail Mary pass, okay? And Kathleen Kennedy seems desperate if this rumor is true, but let's talk about what this one last hit strategy really means. See, Kathleen Kennedy isn't looking for any success. See, Kathleen Kennedy still wants a blockbuster that can rewrite her legacy, and Kathleen Kennedy wants people to forget the mess that she's made and remember her as the one who brought Star Wars franchise back to greatness. But can Kathleen Kennedy really pull it off? My answer, no. The truth is, Kathleen Kennedy basically is banking on a nostalgia play. And Kathleen Kennedy is simply going to try to bring back the magic of the original Star Wars trilogy, maybe even tie back to the Skywalker saga in some desperate attempt to win over the fans who've abandoned the Star Wars franchise, but may still continue to work on Messenger, as well as the fact that we've seen this before. The Rise of Skywalker try to do the same thing, and it failed. Fans are smarter than that. When we see through the pandering, and we're not going to go ahead and fall for it again. And here's the kicker. If Kathleen Kennedy's plan works and this movie is a hit and might be Mandalorian and Grogu, then Kathleen Kennedy will step down and claim victory. You see, Kathleen Kennedy will say, look, I saved Star Wars, and ride off into the sunset. But what has that done with us? What does it leave us? A Star Wars franchise that's still in shambles with no clear direction, and the fan base is more divided than ever. Even if this movie is a hit, it won't fix the damage that Kathleen Kennedy did over the past decade. And it's just a band-aid on a wound that needs serious healing. All right. But there's also more to this story. OK, you see, Kathleen Kennedy and her decision to step down might also be influenced by the lawsuit from Gina Carano that's coming up. Y'all remember how they treated Gina Carano, right? Fired her for having an opinion that didn't fit the woke narrative. Well, Gina Carano's not backing down, and this lawsuit could blow up in Kathleen Kennedy's face. Now, the bad press and the potential legal consequences are basically just too much for Kathleen Kennedy to handle. So stepping down might be Kathleen Kennedy's way of avoiding a fallout. OK, and let's dive deeper into this situation. You see, Gina Carano was on The Mandalorian, the show that was loved by the fans, and Gina Carano played Cara Dune, a tough, no nonsense character, as I said, that resonated with a lot of people. But when Gina Carano expressed her opinions on social media about different things, opinions that didn't align with the woke agenda, that's when Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm dropped her from the franchise. They didn't just fire her. Kathleen Kennedy tried to erase her from the Star Wars franchise altogether. They scrubbed her from the merchandise and pretended like she never existed. All right. But Gina Carano didn't even go quietly. See, Gina Carano took a stand and called out the hypocrisy. And now with this Gina Carano lawsuit, Gina Carano is forcing Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm to answer for their actions. And it's a big deal, people. And it's not just about, Gina Carano. It's about standing up against the cancel culture that's taking over woke Hollywood. And Kathleen Kennedy knows that this lawsuit could expose a lot of the behind the scenes dealings that led to Gina Carano's firing and may lead up to discovery. Now, the timing of this Gina Carano lawsuit is crucial. If Kathleen Kennedy is planning to retire, it might be because Kathleen Kennedy doesn't want to deal with the fallout from this legal battle. Now, stepping down now allows Kathleen Kennedy to avoid any potential, PR disaster that could come from a high profile lawsuit like the Gina Carano lawsuit. Now, Kathleen Kennedy can leave on her own terms before the situation spirals out of control. But in the end, Kathleen Kennedy and her retirement, if it happens, marks the end of an era, a failed era, an era where woke ideology took precedence over good storytelling, where politics was shoved into a galaxy far, far away, and where the fans who built this Star Wars franchise were pushed aside. Now, if Kathleen Kennedy does retire after one last hit, it won't be because Kathleen Kennedy is leaving on a high note. It's going to be because Kathleen Kennedy actually knows that the jig is up. Okay, and the fans have actually had enough. But let's really think about what this means for the future of the Star Wars franchise itself. Now, Kathleen Kennedy's departure might signal a turning point, but it doesn't guarantee things will get better. Now, the damage has already been done, and it's going to take a lot of work to rebuild the trust that's been lost from Star Wars fans. Now, the new leadership at Lucasfilm will have to make some tough decisions. They'll need to focus on the fans, okay, not the agenda and not the small amount of fans. And they'll need to bring back the heart and soul of Star Wars, the sense of wonder and adventure that's been missing for so long. And also, let's not forget about this huge division among the fan base. Now, this is one of the most tragic outcomes of Kathleen Kennedy's tenure. Now, see, Star Wars used to be something that brought people together. It didn't matter who you were or where you came from. If you love Star Wars, you were part of the community. But now the fan base is fractured. You see, there's a lot of bitterness and resentment, and it's going to take time to heal those open wounds. So what does the future hold for Star Wars if Kathleen Kennedy steps down? Well, one can only hope that the Star Wars franchise will actually return to its roots and good storytelling, memorable characters, and epic adventures that bring people together, not divide them. But that won't happen until the leadership at Lucasfilm changes and they start listening to the fans instead of lecturing them. Now, if the next person in charge can actually recognize where Kathleen Kennedy went wrong, there's hope. They need to stop with the whole woke identity politics and start focusing on what made Star Wars great in the first place. And that means respecting the legacy of George Lucas, honoring the characters and stories that have stood the test of time, and even creating new content that feels like it belongs in the Star Wars franchise itself. Okay, no more of this modern day political talk. We also need to consider the possibility of new directions for the Star Wars franchise. Maybe it's time to they might be going ahead and step away from Skywalker saga and explore other parts of the Star Wars galaxy. There's also many stories to tell, and with the right creative team, Star Wars can become a cultural phenomenon that it once was. But let's get back to the whole Gina Carano lawsuit, where Gina Carano's situation means for the future of Hollywood, not just the Star Wars franchise. Now, this lawsuit could set a precedent for how actions and creators are treated when they speak out against the prevailing woke narrative. Now, if Gina Carano wins, it could be a wake-up call for the industry, a reminder that of what cancel culture has consequences and that people won't be silenced for having an opinion. Now, simply put, Kathleen Kennedy might be trying to retire to avoid dealing with this, but the ripple effects will be felt long after Kathleen Kennedy's gone. Now, this is a fight for free speech, for the right to express different viewpoints without fear and retribution. And that's something that we should all support, no matter where we stand on the political spectrum. Okay, as long as it's not, physically harming the other side. But Kathleen Kennedy's rumored retirement is a clear sign that even Kathleen Kennedy knows that basically her time is up. And after a decade of woke failures, one final hit won't change the fact that Kathleen Kennedy's done more harm than good to the Star Wars franchise. And with Gina Carano's lawsuit looming over Kathleen Kennedy, well, it's no wonder Kathleen Kennedy is looking for an exit strategy. And let's hope that when Kathleen Kennedy does go, the Star Wars franchise can finally be saved from the woke agenda and return to being the legendary saga that we all know and love. But it's also important to remember this. This is just the beginning. The future of Star Wars is in our hands as Star Wars fans, and we need to hold the new leadership accountable, demanding better storytelling and support creators who respect the legacy of Star Wars. And if we do that, maybe, just maybe, we can bring the Star Wars franchise back to its former glory. Okay? So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, do you think that Kathleen Kennedy really is going to retire, or is it just a bunch of back talking stuff that's been put out there for years? I mean, remember, it's not saying that Kathleen Kennedy's going to be fired. It's stating that the rumor has it that Kathleen Kennedy may be looking to retire, but only if she can produce one big hit. Now, that to me, that sounds like something that Kathleen Kennedy would want. Okay, so let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have this particular topic. I do respond to comments in the comment section. All right, if you enjoy what I shared in this video, go ahead and smash the like button and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you'll be notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.